Good morning, beloved souls. Today we stand at the doorway of a brand new month, carrying the hopes, prayers, and possibilities that God has placed within us. June arrives not merely as another page on the calendar, but as a fresh invitation from heaven, a reminder that every sunrise carries mercy, every breath carries purpose, and every new day carries the promise of divine direction. Before the demands of the day begin to speak, before fear attempts to write its story upon our hearts, we gather in prayer. We come to lift our eyes toward the one who created us with intention, shaped us with love, and called us by name long before we took our first breath. This morning is not an accident. You are not an accident. The dreams hidden within you, the gifts resting in your spirit, and the purpose waiting to unfold through your life are all part of God's beautiful design. Though yesterday may have carried burdens, disappointments, or unanswered questions, today offers a sacred opportunity to walk forward with renewed faith. As we enter this prayer, let us command our morning with confidence, speak life over our future, and welcome God's wisdom into every step we take. Let us declare that fear will not lead us, doubt will not define us, and circumstances will not determine our destiny. We belong to a faithful God who opens doors no one can shut and makes a way where there seems to be no way. May this prayer awaken courage where there has been hesitation, hope where there has been weariness, and vision where there has been uncertainty. As the sun rises on this first day of June, may we rise also, stronger, wiser, and more determined to walk boldly into the God-given purpose prepared for us. Let us pray. There is a sacred power in the first moments of the day, before the noise of the world rises to meet us, before responsibilities begin calling our names, before worries gather at the door of our minds. There is a holy invitation waiting in the morning light. It is an invitation to choose faith before fear, hope before despair, and trust before uncertainty. The morning is more than a time on a clock. It is a gift wrapped in God's mercy. It is a fresh page untouched by yesterday's mistakes. It is a quiet reminder that the Creator of heaven and earth has allowed us to wake once more beneath His grace. Every sunrise carries evidence that God has not finished with us yet. Every new dawn whispers that His plans are still unfolding. Every breath we take upon awakening testifies that purpose still lives within us. Too often, people begin their mornings by consulting their fears. They reach for anxiety before they reach for prayer. They review their problems before they remember God's promises. They allow the headlines, the pressures, the unpaid bills, the unanswered questions, and the unexpected challenges to dictate the atmosphere of their hearts. Yet faith teaches us another way. Faith teaches us that the morning belongs first to God. Before the world speaks, God speaks. Before circumstances make their report, God has already written His promises. Before obstacles appear on the road ahead, God has already gone before us, preparing the way. This is why commanding the morning with faith is not an act of denial. It is an act of divine alignment. It is choosing to agree with God's truth rather than surrendering to the loud voices of fear. There will always be reasons to worry. There will always be situations that seem too large for human strength. There will always be moments when the future appears uncertain and the path ahead looks hidden beneath clouds. But faith does not require perfect visibility. Faith requires trust. Faith declares that even when we cannot see the entire staircase, we can still take the first step because God is holding the hand that guides us forward. When we command our morning with faith, we stand in spiritual authority. We refuse to allow fear to occupy the throne of our thoughts. We refuse to allow discouragement to become the soundtrack of our day. We choose instead to speak life where doubt has tried to speak defeat. Perhaps yesterday was difficult. Perhaps someone disappointed you. Perhaps you received news you did not expect. Perhaps a prayer remains unanswered. Yet the morning arrives carrying new mercy. God's compassion does not run dry because of yesterday's pain. His strength is not diminished by our struggles. His love is not weakened by our questions. The God who watched over us through the darkness of the night remains faithful in the brightness of the morning. Faith reminds us that our circumstances do not have the final word. God does. The storm does not have the final word. God does. The diagnosis does not have the final word. God does. The rejection does not have the final word. God does. The delay does not have the final word. God does. And because God has the final word, we can rise each morning with confidence even when answers have not yet arrived. There is something remarkable that happens when a believer begins the day with faith. The heart becomes steadier, the mind becomes clearer, the spirit becomes stronger. The challenges may remain, but their power to intimidate begins to diminish. Fear loses its grip when faith takes its place. Faith is not pretending that difficulties do not exist. Faith is recognizing that God's power is greater than every difficulty. It is understanding that mountains may stand before us, but the one who created the mountains walks beside us. It is knowing that valleys may appear along the journey, but God's presence travels with us through every shadow and every season. The morning offers an opportunity to make a declaration. Not a declaration based on emotions. Not a declaration based on circumstances. Not a declaration based on what others have said. A declaration based upon the character of God. We can declare that God is faithful. We can declare that God is our refuge. We can declare that God is our provider. We can declare that God is our strength. We can declare that God is our guide. We can declare that God is working all things together for good. These declarations are not empty words floating into the air. They are seeds planted within the soil of the soul. And what is planted consistently begins to grow. Faith grows when it is spoken. Hope grows when it is nourished. Courage grows when it is exercised. Every morning presents a choice. We can rehearse our fears, or we can remember God's faithfulness. Think of the battles God has already brought you through. Think of the doors He has opened when no doors seemed available. Think of the prayers He has answered, the protection He has provided, the comfort He has given, and the strength He has supplied when your own strength was gone. The same God who carried you yesterday remains present today. Faith remembers. Faith remembers the victories hidden behind us. Faith remembers the lessons learned through hardship. Faith remembers the miracles that arrived unexpectedly. Faith remembers that God has never abandoned His children. The morning is not merely the beginning of another day. It is a sacred appointment with possibility. It is an opportunity to lift our eyes above temporary troubles and focus upon eternal truth. It is a chance to begin again with fresh confidence. When you command your morning with faith, you are telling your soul that God is greater than every challenge. You are reminding your heart that divine purpose still governs your life. You are announcing to fear that it will not determine your future. And there is beauty in such confidence. Not arrogance, not pride, but holy confidence. The confidence that comes from knowing who holds your life. The confidence that comes from trusting God's promises more than your doubt. The confidence that comes from believing that the author of your story is still writing chapters filled with grace, redemption, and hope. As this day unfolds, there may be unexpected turns. There may be moments that test your patience. There may be situations that require wisdom and courage, yet let faith go before you. Let faith shape your thoughts. Let faith guide your words. Let faith influence your decisions. Carry faith into your workplace. Carry faith into your relationships. Carry faith into your challenges. Carry faith into your dreams. Carry faith into the unknown places that await you. For faith is more than a feeling. It is a way of walking. It is a way of seeing. It is a way of living that refuses to surrender hope. This morning, stand tall in the grace God has given you. Lift your head above discouragement. Open your heart to possibility. Trust that the God who awakened you has already prepared strength for today's journey. Trust that He has already gone ahead of you. Trust that His purpose for your life remains secure. And as the sun climbs higher into the sky, let your spirit rise with it. Let your faith become stronger than your fear. Let your hope become louder than your doubts. Let your confidence rest not in human ability, but in divine faithfulness. For this is the day the Lord has made. This is the morning He has entrusted to you. This is another opportunity to walk in grace, live with purpose, and trust without hesitation. Command your morning with faith, and watch how God transforms an ordinary day into a testimony of His goodness. There comes a moment in every life when the soul begins to ask deeper questions. Beyond the schedules, beyond the responsibilities, beyond the endless movement of daily existence, there rises a quiet longing from within. It asks, why am I here? What was I created to do? What purpose has God placed upon my life? These questions are not signs of weakness. They are evidence that the spirit is reaching toward its Creator, seeking the wisdom that only heaven can provide. Purpose is one of God's greatest gifts. It is the divine thread woven through every season of our lives. It is the sacred reason behind our talents, our experiences, our victories, and even our struggles. Yet purpose is not always discovered in a single moment. More often it unfolds one faithful step at a time as we seek God's direction and trust His leading. Many people spend their lives searching for significance in places that can never truly satisfy. They chase approval, believing that acceptance from others will reveal their worth. They pursue success, imagining that achievement alone will answer the deepest questions of the heart. They gather possessions, hoping that abundance will fill the empty spaces within. Yet the soul remains restless until it finds its rest in the one who created it. God never intended for us to wander aimlessly through life. We are not accidents drifting through time. We are intentional creations of a loving God who formed us with wisdom, purpose, and divine care. Before we ever opened our eyes to see the world, God already saw the gifts He would place within us. Before we ever took our first breath, He already knew the paths we would travel and the lives we would touch. There is comfort in knowing that God has a purpose for every season. Even the chapters we would rather forget can become part of His greater plan. The disappointments, the delays, the unexpected detours, and the painful lessons do not exist outside His knowledge. Somehow, through His infinite wisdom, He weaves them together into a story that carries meaning beyond what we can presently understand. Seeking God's direction begins with humility. It begins when we acknowledge that our vision is limited, but His vision is complete. We see only the present moment, but God sees the entire journey. We see the obstacle standing before us, but God sees the breakthrough waiting beyond it. We see the closed door, but God sees the pathway that is still being prepared. The beauty of God's guidance is that it does not depend upon our perfection. If that were the requirement, none of us would ever move forward. God's direction flows through grace. He guides ordinary people with imperfect histories and unanswered questions. He leads hearts that are willing to trust Him even when they do not possess every answer. Too often people delay their purpose because they are waiting for absolute certainty. They want every detail revealed before they take the first step. Yet faith rarely operates that way. God often provides enough light for the next step rather than illuminating the entire road. He teaches us to trust His voice, His character, and His promises. A child does not need to understand every turn of the journey when holding a loving parent's hand. In the same way, we do not need to understand every detail of God's plan in order to follow His direction. We simply need to trust the one who leads us. When we seek God's direction, prayer becomes more than a religious practice. It becomes a conversation. It becomes an opportunity to place our desires before God and listen for His wisdom. Prayer is where confusion begins to give way to clarity. It is where fear loses its authority and faith gains strength. It is where our hearts become aligned with the purposes of heaven. There are times when God's guidance comes through a deep sense of peace. There are moments when a decision that once seemed complicated suddenly becomes clear. There are seasons when doors begin to open in ways we could never have arranged ourselves. Sometimes His direction arrives through Scripture, sometimes through wise counsel, sometimes through circumstances, sometimes through quiet conviction placed gently upon the heart. Yet in every case, God's guidance carries the mark of His character. It leads toward love, wisdom, truth, and purpose. It does not produce chaos and confusion. It draws us closer to the life He designed for us. Purpose is not reserved for a select few. It belongs to every child of God. The teacher shaping young minds carries purpose. The parent nurturing a family carries purpose. The worker serving faithfully carries purpose. The friend offering encouragement carries purpose. Purpose is not measured by public recognition. It is measured by faithful obedience. The world often celebrates position, status, and influence. God looks deeper. He sees the heart. He sees the quiet acts of faithfulness that may never appear in headlines. He sees the prayers offered in private. He sees the kindness extended when no one is watching. He sees the perseverance demonstrated during difficult seasons. Purpose is not always about standing on a stage. Sometimes it is about standing faithfully where God has placed you. One of the greatest barriers to discovering purpose is comparison. Comparison convinces people that their journey should look like someone else's journey. It whispers that another person's gifts are more valuable, another person's opportunities are more important, another person's calling is more significant. But God does not create copies. He creates originals. The same God who painted every sunrise with unique colors has also created every life with unique purpose. The gifts He has given you were chosen with intention. The experiences you have lived through carry lessons that may become blessings to others. The voice He has placed within you was never meant to sound exactly like anyone else's. When we compare ourselves to others, we become distracted from our own assignment. We spend energy wishing for another path while neglecting the path God has prepared specifically for us. Yet true fulfillment comes not from imitating another person's purpose, but from embracing our own. Seeking God's direction requires patience. We live in a culture that often demands immediate answers, immediate results, and immediate success. But God's timing frequently operates differently. He develops character before promotion. He builds strength before responsibility. He prepares hearts before opportunities. The waiting seasons are not wasted seasons. The hidden seasons are not forgotten seasons. The preparation seasons are not meaningless seasons. Roots grow underground long before fruit appears above the surface. In the same way, God often performs His deepest work within us before revealing His plans through us. Perhaps today you are standing at a crossroads. Perhaps you are facing decisions that seem overwhelming. Perhaps you are wondering what comes next. If so, remember this truth. God is not confused about your future. He knows the way forward. He knows the purpose He has placed within you. He knows the doors that should open and the doors that should remain closed. He knows the people who will encourage your journey and the lessons that will strengthen your faith. Your responsibility is not to control every outcome. Your responsibility is to seek Him faithfully and trust His leadership. There is remarkable freedom in surrendering the burden of self-direction. The pressure to figure everything out can be exhausting. Yet when we place our lives in God's hands, we discover that His wisdom is greater than our understanding, and His plans are better than our expectations. As this new day begins, choose to seek God's direction above all else. Invite Him into your decisions, your dreams, your ambitions, and your uncertainties. Ask Him to reveal the next step. Ask Him to shape your desires according to His will. Ask Him to align your heart with His purpose, and then move forward in faith. Not because you know everything, not because every question has been answered, not because every obstacle has disappeared, but because you trust the God who leads. For the God who created you also calls you. The God who calls you also guides you. And the God who guides you will never abandon the purpose He has placed within your life. Walk forward with confidence. Walk forward with humility. Walk forward with expectation. For your purpose is not lost. Your calling is not forgotten. Your future is not uncertain in the eyes of God. Seek His direction. And step by step, season by season, He will lead you into the beautiful purpose for which you were created. There is a remarkable grace hidden within every new day. It arrives quietly, without demanding attention, without asking permission, without waiting for us to feel ready. The morning simply comes, carrying with it the gift of another beginning. The sun rises again, the sky opens its arms once more, and God, in His endless mercy, offers us a fresh opportunity to live, to grow, to heal, and to move forward. Yet many people step into a new day while carrying the weight of an old one. They carry yesterday's failures. They carry yesterday's disappointments. They carry yesterday's regrets. They carry words that wounded them, mistakes that embarrassed them, opportunities they missed, and dreams that did not unfold the way they had hoped. The burden of yesterday can become so heavy that it blinds us to the beauty of today. We become prisoners of memories that God never intended us to carry forever. We replay painful moments as if repetition could somehow change the outcome. We revisit old wounds so often that they continue to feel fresh. We hold tightly to seasons that have already passed, forgetting that God is calling us towards something new. But God's invitation is always forward. His grace points forward. His mercy points forward. His purpose points forward. His promises point forward. But God, who created time, never intended for His children to spend their lives chained to what has already happened. He understands our pain. He sees our disappointments. He knows every tear that has fallen and every heartache that has left its mark. Yet even in His compassion, He lovingly calls us to release what cannot be changed and embrace what is still possible. Yesterday may have taught you valuable lessons, but it was never meant to become your permanent residence. There is wisdom in remembering, but there is danger in living there. Some people are haunted by failure. They made a mistake years ago and still allow it to define them. They speak about themselves through the lens of a single bad decision. They introduce themselves to the future carrying labels that God has already removed through His forgiveness. But God sees more than your mistakes. He sees your growth. He sees your resilience. He sees the lessons you have learned. He sees the person you are becoming. The pages of your story cannot be reduced to a single chapter. No matter how painful that chapter may have been, it is not the entire book. God's hand is still writing. His grace is still working. His purpose is still unfolding. The enemy of progress often speaks with the voice of the past. It whispers that because you failed once, you will fail again. It insists that because you were hurt before, you should never trust again. It argues that because a door closed yesterday, no doors will open tomorrow. Yet faith speaks a different language. Faith says God can restore what was broken. Faith says God can heal what was wounded. Faith says God can redeem what was lost. Faith says God can create beauty from ashes and hope from despair. One of the most courageous acts a person can perform is the act of letting go. Not because letting go is easy, but because it requires trust. It requires believing that God's future is greater than your past. It requires believing that His plans are stronger than your disappointments. It requires believing that the chapter ahead contains blessings you cannot yet see. The truth is that every life experiences seasons of loss. Every heart encounters moments of sorrow. Every journey includes roads we would rather not travel. There are dreams that do not unfold according to our timeline. There are relationships that change. There are opportunities that disappear. There are prayers that seem delayed. Yet even in those moments, God remains present. He walks with us through grief. He strengthens us through uncertainty. He comforts us through disappointment. And slowly, gently, faithfully, He leads us toward healing. Healing rarely happens all at once. More often it comes one step at a time. One prayer at a time, one act of trust at a time, one day at a time. The sunrise does not conquer the darkness through violence. It simply appears, and little by little the shadows retreat. In much the same way, God's healing light enters our lives. It does not always arrive dramatically. Sometimes it comes quietly through a word of encouragement, a moment of peace, an unexpected blessing, or a renewed sense of hope. And before we realize it, What once felt impossible to carry has become lighter. What once seemed impossible to overcome has become part of our testimony. What once threatened to destroy us has become evidence of God's sustaining grace. There is something powerful about new beginnings. New beginnings remind us that God specializes in renewal. He gives new strength to the weary. He gives new hope to the discouraged. He gives new vision to those who have lost their way. He gives new opportunities to those willing to trust Him again. Nature itself reflects this truth. After winter comes spring. After the storm comes calm. After the night comes morning. God's creation continually proclaims the message that endings are not always endings. Sometimes they are simply transitions into something new. Perhaps the greatest obstacle to embracing a new beginning is fear. Fear asks, what if I fail again? Fear asks, what if I get hurt again? Fear asks, what if things never change? But faith asks a different question. Faith asks, what if God has something better ahead? What if the closed door protected you from the wrong path? What if the delay prepared you for a greater opportunity? What if the struggle strengthened you for the purpose God has planned? What if this new season contains blessings beyond your imagination? When we release yesterday, we make room for those possibilities. We make room for joy. We make room for peace. We make room for growth. We make room for purpose. We make room for God's next chapter. Holding on to the past can feel familiar even when it is painful. Sometimes people cling to old hurts because they have carried them for so long that they have become part of their identity. Yet God never intended your pain to define you. You are not your mistakes. You are not your failures. You are not your disappointments. You are not your worst day. You are a child of God, created with purpose, sustained by grace, and called toward a future filled with hope. Every morning God whispers this truth through the rising sun. Begin again. Begin again with faith. Begin again with courage. Begin again with hope. Begin again with trust. Begin again with expectation. The beauty of grace is that it allows us to start over without pretending the past never happened. Grace acknowledges the wounds while offering healing. Grace remembers the lessons while releasing the shame. Grace honors the journey while inviting us to continue moving forward. As this new month begins, there may be things you need to lay down. Perhaps it is regret. Perhaps it is bitterness. Perhaps it is disappointment. Perhaps it is self-doubt. Perhaps it is fear of the future. Whatever burden you have been carrying, place it in God's hands. His shoulders are strong enough to bear what yours were never meant to carry alone. Trust Him with the broken pieces. Trust Him with the unanswered questions. Trust Him with the unfinished story. Trust Him with the future you cannot yet see. For the God who brought you through yesterday is already waiting in tomorrow. He has gone before you. He has prepared blessings you have not yet discovered. He has opened doors you have not yet reached. He has planted opportunities that are still growing beneath the surface. Do not allow yesterday's shadows to hide today's sunlight. Do not allow old disappointments to steal new possibilities. Do not allow past failures to silence future victories. Lift your eyes. Lift your heart. Lift your expectations. The past may have shaped you, but it does not own you. The past may have taught you, but it does not define you. The past may have wounded you, but it cannot stop God's healing power. Today is a gift. This month is a gift. This season is a gift. Receive it with gratitude. Walk into it with faith. Embrace it with courage. For God's mercies are new every morning. His faithfulness remains constant through every season, and His plans for your life are still unfolding. Release yesterday. Open your heart to today, and step boldly into the new beginning that God, in His endless love and wisdom, has prepared just for you. There is a quiet strength that God places within every human soul. It does not always arrive with thunder. It does not always announce itself with grand displays of power. Often it lives quietly beneath the surface, waiting for the moment when faith calls it forward. It is the strength to rise after falling. It is the determination to continue after disappointment. It is the courage to move ahead even when the path is uncertain. It is the confidence that comes not from knowing everything about the future, but from knowing the one who holds the future in his hands. Many people spend years searching for confidence in all the wrong places. They look for it in the approval of others. They seek it in accomplishments, possessions, titles, and recognition. They believe that confidence will arrive once they achieve enough, earn enough, or become enough. Yet confidence built upon those foundations is fragile, for circumstances change, people change, and seasons change. True confidence is born from a deeper source. It comes from understanding who God is. It comes from understanding who God says you are. It comes from believing that the Creator of the universe has placed purpose within your life and equipped you for the journey ahead. The world often defines confidence as self-reliance. It encourages people to place all their trust in their own abilities. But spiritual confidence is different. It is not arrogance. It is not pride. It is not the belief that we can accomplish everything through our own strength. Godly confidence is the assurance that God will provide what is needed for whatever He has called us to do. It is standing tall, not because we are extraordinary, but because God is faithful. It is moving forward, not because we possess all the answers, but because we trust His guidance. It is facing challenges, not because we are fearless, but because we know we are never alone. Courage and confidence walk hand in hand. Courage does not mean the absence of fear. Courage means refusing to allow fear to have the final word. Every person who has ever accomplished something meaningful has faced moments of uncertainty. Every great journey has included questions. Every act of faith has required stepping beyond comfort into trust. Fear has a way of magnifying obstacles. It makes problems appear larger than they truly are. It whispers that failure is inevitable. It convinces people to remain where they are because movement feels risky. But faith speaks another language. Faith reminds us that God's power is greater than every obstacle. Faith reminds us that opportunities often live on the other side of uncertainty. Faith reminds us that growth rarely happens within the boundaries of comfort. There are dreams that remain unrealized because fear convinced someone not to try. There are blessings left unopened because doubt convinced someone not to believe. There are doors left untouched because uncertainty convinced someone not to knock. Yet God continually calls His children forward. Forward into growth. Forward into purpose. Forward into faith, forward into the life He has prepared. Think about the countless times throughout your life when God has already carried you through situations that once seemed impossible. There were seasons when you did not know how things would work out. There were moments when the burden felt too heavy. There were nights filled with questions and mornings filled with uncertainty. Yet here you are, still standing, still believing, still moving forward. The very fact that you have survived what once threatened to overwhelm you is evidence of God's sustaining power. The battles you have already overcome serve as reminders that His faithfulness has never abandoned you. Sometimes confidence grows by remembering. Remember the prayers God answered. Remember the strength He supplied. Remember the doors He opened. Remember the protection He provided. Remember the lessons He taught. Memory can become a powerful ally to faith. When we recall God's goodness in previous seasons, we gain courage for the challenges of the present one. Life has a way of presenting opportunities that require courage. Sometimes courage means speaking when silence would be easier. Sometimes courage means remaining silent when anger wants to speak. Sometimes courage means beginning something new. Sometimes courage means ending something that no longer serves God's purpose in our lives. There are moments when courage looks dramatic and visible. There are other moments when courage is quiet and unseen. The parent who continues loving through exhaustion demonstrates courage. The person who forgives after being deeply hurt demonstrates courage. The individual who chooses integrity when compromise would be easier demonstrates courage. The believer who continues trusting God during uncertainty demonstrates courage. Courage is not measured by applause. It is measured by faithfulness. God does not call us to impress the world. He calls us to trust Him. And trust often requires bravery. One of the greatest obstacles to confidence is comparison. Comparison steals joy because it shifts our attention away from God's unique work in our own lives. It convinces us that someone else's journey is more important. It causes us to focus on what we lack instead of appreciating what God has already given. But God does not compare His children. He does not measure your purpose against someone else's purpose. He does not evaluate your journey according to another person's timeline. He created you intentionally. He gifted you uniquely. He called you specifically. The talents you possess, the experiences you have lived through, and the lessons you have learned are all part of His design. Confidence begins to flourish when we stop trying to become someone else and start embracing the person God created us to be. There is freedom in that realization. Freedom from competition. Freedom from insecurity. Freedom from the endless pursuit of approval. Freedom to walk faithfully in your own calling. The truth is that every person carries weaknesses. Every person encounters limitations. Every person faces moments when they feel inadequate. Yet God has never been limited by human weakness. Again and again, He uses ordinary people to accomplish extraordinary purposes. He works through willing hearts. He strengthens those who depend upon Him. He empowers those who trust Him. This means that your limitations do not disqualify you from God's plans. Your imperfections do not prevent His grace from working through your life. Your past mistakes do not erase your future possibilities. God's strength shines most brightly when we acknowledge our need for Him. The courageous life is not a perfect life. It is a surrendered life. It is a life that says, Lord, I may not have all the answers, but I trust You. It is a life that says, Lord, I may feel afraid, but I will move forward in faith. It is a life that says, Lord, I may not understand every detail, but I believe You are leading me. Such confidence transforms the way we approach each day. We begin to see challenges as opportunities for growth. We begin to view obstacles as places where God's power can be revealed. We begin to recognize that setbacks are not necessarily endings. Sometimes they are redirections. Sometimes they are preparation. Sometimes they are invitations to trust God more deeply. The road ahead may not always be easy. There will be moments when courage is required. There will be days when confidence feels difficult to maintain. There will be situations that test your faith and stretch your patience. Yet remember this. The God who calls you forward also walks beside you. You do not travel alone. His wisdom accompanies you. His strength sustains you. His grace covers you. His love surrounds you. And His purpose remains secure. As this new month begins, refuse to shrink back because of fear. Refuse to allow self-doubt to dictate your decisions. Refuse to let uncertainty convince you that you are incapable. Stand firmly upon the promises of God. Lift your eyes above temporary circumstances. Remember that your value does not come from the opinions of others. Your worth does not depend upon worldly success. Your identity does not rest upon your failures or achievements. Your identity rests in the God who created you and loves you completely. Walk into this day with your head held high and your heart anchored in faith. Walk into this month believing that God has equipped you for every assignment He places before you. Walk into every opportunity with expectation. Walk into every challenge with determination. Walk into every uncertainty with trust. The road may twist and turn. The journey may include unexpected chapters, but God's faithfulness remains constant. And because He remains faithful, you can move forward with confidence. Because He remains present, you can move forward with courage. Because He remains sovereign, you can move forward with hope. The world needs people who are willing to trust God boldly. It needs people who rise above fear and embrace purpose. It needs people who understand that courage is not the absence of weakness, but the decision to keep moving despite it. So rise this morning with renewed strength. Rise with faith in your heart. Rise with confidence in God's promises. Rise with courage for the road ahead. And wherever this day leads, walk forward knowing that the God who called you is able to sustain you, guide you, strengthen you, and carry you into every good thing He has prepared for your life. Walk in confidence. Walk in courage, and watch how God turns ordinary steps of faith into extraordinary testimonies of His grace. The arrival of a new month is more than the turning of a calendar page. It is a sacred reminder that time continues to move beneath the watchful eye of God. June arrives carrying fresh opportunities, fresh responsibilities, fresh challenges, and fresh blessings. It stands before us like an unwritten chapter, waiting to be filled with choices, actions, prayers, and moments that will become part of our story. How we enter a new month matters. We can enter it with worry. We can enter it with uncertainty. We can enter it carrying fear about what may happen. Or we can enter it with our hearts surrendered to God, trusting that the one who holds all seasons in His hands is already present in every day that lies ahead. There is profound wisdom in dedicating the month of June to God's glory. Such a dedication is not merely a ritual or a religious phrase. It is a deliberate act of faith. It is an acknowledgement that our lives belong to God. It is a declaration that our plans, our goals, our dreams, our relationships, our work, and our future are safest when placed in His hands. Many people spend countless hours planning their schedules, organizing their priorities, and preparing for upcoming events. These efforts are valuable. Planning has its place. Responsibility has its place. Wisdom has its place. Yet there is something even more important than preparation. There is surrender. For no matter how carefully we plan, we cannot see every circumstance that awaits us. We cannot predict every opportunity. We cannot prevent every challenge. We cannot control every outcome. But God can. He sees what we cannot see. He knows what we do not know. He understands what we cannot yet understand. He holds tomorrow with the same authority with which He holds today. That is why dedicating a month to God's glory is such a powerful act. It removes the burden of self-dependence and replaces it with trust. It shifts our focus from what we can accomplish through our own strength to what God can accomplish through His power working within us. When we dedicate June to God's glory, we begin by recognizing His goodness. We remember that every blessing comes from Him. The breath in our lungs comes from Him. The strength in our bodies comes from Him. The opportunities before us come from Him. The grace that has carried us this far comes from Him. Gratitude becomes the foundation of dedication. A grateful heart sees life differently. It notices blessings that others overlook. It recognizes God's fingerprints in ordinary moments. It understands that every sunrise is evidence of divine mercy, and every new day is an undeserved gift. The month ahead may contain victories, it may contain challenges, it may contain surprises we cannot yet imagine, but regardless of what comes, gratitude reminds us that God remains faithful. There is beauty in beginning June with an attitude of worship. Worship is more than singing songs. Worship is more than words spoken during prayer. Worship is a way of living. It is choosing to honor God through our actions, our attitudes, our decisions, and our relationships. Every act of kindness can become worship. Every expression of forgiveness can become worship. Every moment of integrity can become worship. Every step of obedience can become worship. Every act of service can become worship. When our lives reflect God's love, we bring glory to His name. Too often, people separate their spiritual lives from their daily lives. They honor God in prayer but forget Him in decision-making. They worship on special occasions but neglect His presence during ordinary moments. Yet God desires more. He desires our whole heart. He desires our entire lives. He desires to be present not only in moments of worship, but in every conversation, every responsibility, every challenge, and every triumph. Dedicating June to God's glory means inviting Him into every area of life. Invite Him into your home. Invite Him into your work. Invite Him into your finances. Invite Him into your relationships. Invite Him into your dreams. Invite Him into your worries. Invite Him into your plans. Nothing is too small for His attention, and nothing is too large for His power. There is something beautiful that happens when a person genuinely places their plans before God. Ambition becomes aligned with purpose. Desires become refined by wisdom. Goals become guided by eternal values rather than temporary achievements. Success takes on a deeper meaning. Instead of asking, how can I gain recognition, we begin asking, how can I honor God? Instead of asking, how can I advance my own interests, we begin asking, how can I serve others? Instead of asking, how much can I receive, we begin asking, how much can I give? This shift transforms the way we approach life. The pursuit of God's glory changes our priorities. It changes our motivations. It changes our perspective. And ultimately, it changes our legacy. For at the end of life, people rarely remember every possession someone accumulated. They rarely remember every title earned or every award received. They remember love. They remember kindness. They remember generosity. They remember faithfulness. They remember the lives that were touched and the hope that was shared. These are the things that bring glory to God. As June unfolds, there will likely be moments when circumstances do not match expectations. There may be delays. There may be disappointments. There may be questions without immediate answers. In those moments, dedication becomes especially important. It is easy to trust God when everything is going well. It is easy to praise Him when prayers are answered exactly as expected. But true dedication remains steady through every season. It says, Lord, even when I do not understand, I trust you. It says, Lord, even when the road becomes difficult, I will continue walking with you. It says, Lord, even when my plans change, I know your purpose remains secure. Such faith brings peace, not because every problem disappears, but because we know who walks beside us through every challenge. One of the greatest gifts we can offer God during this month is obedience. Obedience is often misunderstood. Some view it as restriction, others view it as obligation. Yet obedience is actually an expression of trust. When we obey God, we acknowledge that His wisdom exceeds our own. We acknowledge that His guidance leads toward life. We acknowledge that His plans are ultimately better than anything we could design for ourselves. Every act of obedience plants seeds for future blessings. Every step of faith opens doors for God's work in our lives. Every choice to honor Him strengthens our relationship with Him. June also provides an opportunity to become more intentional about our influence. Whether we realize it or not, our lives affect others. Our words leave impressions. Our actions create ripples. Our attitudes shape environments. People are watching how we respond to challenges. They are watching how we treat others. They are watching how we handle success. They are watching how we endure hardship. Through these everyday moments, we have opportunities to reflect God's character. A gentle word may encourage someone who is struggling. A compassionate act may restore someone's hope. A patient response may demonstrate God's grace. A faithful life may inspire someone else's faith. These seemingly small moments often become powerful testimonies. As the days of June unfold, let this month become an offering to God. Offer Him your mornings. Offer Him your decisions. Offer Him your strength. Offer Him your weaknesses. Offer Him your victories. Offer Him your struggles. Offer Him your hopes. Offer Him your future. Place everything in His hand. Trust Him with every detail. Trust Him with every uncertainty. Trust Him with every opportunity. Trust Him with every challenge. For the God who has carried you through previous seasons is fully capable of carrying you through this one. He has not abandoned His plans for your life. He has not forgotten His promises. He has not overlooked your prayers. He has not grown weary of extending grace. His love remains constant. His mercy remains abundant. His faithfulness remains unshaken. So enter this month with expectation. Enter it with gratitude. Enter it with humility. Enter it with faith. Let every goal be surrendered to God. Let every accomplishment point back to Him. Let every blessing become an opportunity for praise. Let every challenge become an opportunity for trust. Let every day become an opportunity to reflect His goodness. And when June reaches its conclusion, may you be able to look back and see evidence of God's hand upon your journey. May you see prayers answered, lessons learned, strength renewed, and faith deepened. May you discover that dedicating the month to God's glory was not merely a decision made at the beginning of June, but a path that transformed every day that followed. For a life surrendered to God is never wasted. A month dedicated to His glory is never empty. And a heart committed to His purpose will always find meaning, hope, and peace in the presence of the one who makes all things new.